Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining this week's Do More with MotoCommerce in 15 minutes. In our workshop today, we're going to be covering lead handling strategies and tips. I've got Matt Morrow, one of our dealer success managers, joining us today, who's actually worked in a dealership in the past. So he's going to be bringing some of those approaches to the conversation today as well. This session is actually going to be focused on an overview of the different approaches based on the modern retailing needs of our customers today. And then in next week's session, we actually look at all the different approaches based on where the consumer is at in their journey, and also based on how they reach out to us and what kind of tips we can provide for those customers and how we can approach them to ensure that we guide them further and deeper in the purchase funnel. So Matt, thank you very much for hopping on today.
Thanks, Clarice.
So we'll start with this, and I think many of you who have joined our past conversations, you have seen this screenshot before on this specific feature in our tool as well, but I think it's a great framing slide for our conversation today as well, because it's one of those features that our successful dealers are seeing a lot of benefit from and bringing the results to them that they're looking for. So Matt, if you don't mind, just spend a little bit of time on focusing this and how it can benefit our dealer partners in their conversations.
Absolutely, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So one of the topics of today's discussion is this concept of link sharing. Now, this is something that you've probably heard a little bit about if you've joined any of our past webinars. And this is also something that might have been brought up a few times by your own dealer success manager. But this concept of link sharing is an easy way that we can actually increase the effectiveness and level of engagement that we have with our clients from afar. So by incorporating these shareable links, whether it's an email communication. We have an example on the left side of the screen of what the MotoCommerce platform looks like on your desktop computer. You can find those shareable links right beside each of the purchase steps along the road to the sale. And on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a mobile example. So you can see the same links are available on mobile. So it's just a great way to increase the effectiveness of those outbound communications. We actually have some data on the next slide that I want to cover to explain a little bit about the why behind this approach.
And just while we're on here, it actually reminds me, I had a conversation with one of our dealer partners a couple of weeks ago, and the product advisor or sales representative I was talking to, he said to me, I actually sell like 2-3 cars on Sundays on my day off by using my cell phone. And it's this specific feature that he was referring to, which allows literally on his phone when he gets a response from a customer to guide them to those next steps as well. And I think from the data that you're referring to here, that showcases that how that can actually bring you the increased conversion from prospect to vehicles sold in the operations.
100%. And with the added mobile functionality, like you mentioned, Clarice, it's super easy to add your client into the sales funnel. Within a couple of clicks, you can accurately quote them on anything in your inventory. And with the shareable links, it makes it really easy to navigate them to specific purchase steps. So talking a little bit about the why here, that's the purpose of the data on the screen. And this data was the result of a recent analysis that we conducted with a few of our larger dealer groups here in Canada. And what the data shows, and it makes sense, is that the more steps that we can encourage the client to take ahead of their appointment, the better it is for us. We're going to see a higher rate of conversion, and this data on the screen really goes and indicates that. In fact, if we can collect a credit application with our guest on a specific vehicle of interest, our chances of closing that client on average are about 60%. And for those clients that we have more engagement with and more dealer participation, we can see levels of conversion around 70%. And I just want to mention for a moment that this is prior to our client arriving in the showroom. So this is really, the message behind link sharing is this idea of step progression. And this is something that we're going to be talking a little bit more about in today's session. This is something easy that we can do, that we can incorporate into our outbound communications to really increase our level of engagement with our guests and our level of conversion as a result.
Yeah, and if you joined us last week, we actually covered some of those examples from our dealers who are seeing those 23 to 28% order conversions, which is, if you look at the average e-lead conversion in the industry that hovers around 6, 7, 8%, for some dealerships, 10, 11%, like we're literally multiplying those results. And the beauty about that is that we're actually providing a better consumer experience. So if we think about traditional way of transacting, the traditional approaches, it would have been that if the consumer reaches out, we'll try and get them into the showroom as fast as possible, and then get the consumer to come to their appointment, spend 2-3 hours going through the whole process within the showroom. And there are still consumers who want to do that. They've done their research and they turn up at your dealership and they want to do everything there. But that's really around 30%. Now, the rest of them are either open to different way of transacting or actually looking for a different approach and that convenience to complete more of those steps online. So what we're saying with digital retailing, that it really opens up your opportunity to meet the needs of potentially 60 to 70% of consumers who don't want to transact the way that we've been doing for the past 20, 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. When we're thinking from the dealer perspective and we're interacting with a new guest, our goal is to get that guest into the showroom as soon as possible. But what we're seeing based on the data, and especially with the restrictions that we're seeing at different provinces across our country, we don't necessarily have that luxury of waiting for our client to arrive to initiate the sales process. In fact, if we do, we are in many cases doing ourselves a disservice by keeping that excitement level up during those first few communications and offering easy access for our client to submit their trade-in, their credit application, and really tackle some of these major hurdles along the purchase process. This is how we can really separate ourselves from the competition and provide a truly unique and tailored customer experience.
Yeah, and I've seen it in the reviews for some of our dealers as well. And it's almost like the process becomes or fades into the background, and it's all about the experience that the consumer were able to go through. And it also removes roadblocks for as well. So here's a linear journey that happened in the past. Customer comes into the dealership, we finish up the transaction. Now that's changed a lot, obviously.
Absolutely, it has. And, this is a really, really important concept to relay as well. There's sometimes this misconception that digital retail is this resource that lives on our website and clients will interact with it and it will improve the client experience. But you really need to think of digital retail holistically in order for it to be as effective as possible. It really should be something that is melding with your internal processes, and it should be seen as an extension of those services that are available at your dealership. Just because an interaction originates online through your online shopping tools, it does not mean that it will stay there. In fact, in many cases that we can see on the screen here, clients navigate between offline and online channels about 4 times during the course of purchasing an automobile. So that interaction might start off as a digital retailing account. It might turn into a series of conversations via phone or text message, and that might even result in an in-store visit. But let's say that client does not, purchase on their first visit. It gives them something tangible that they can summarize their interaction with and go home and complete that purchase. And this is a level of functionality that we didn't necessarily have before. And this is exactly what is driving this improved conversion and improved customer experience.
Yeah, and one of the other pieces that I think it's worth highlighting here as well, that human interaction is not going away, and it hasn't gone away. I think it has even more importance and value now.
100% it does, Clarice. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Clients want a unique, tailored experience. They crave it. And, for those dealers that take the extra time to really cater the experience to their particular clients' needs and desires and, concerns, those hurdles that are holding them back from moving forward, those are the dealers that are earning the business. Right, it's those dealers that really provide an improved customer experience that are winning a higher percentage of clients in this current marketplace. Client experience, it's more important than it's ever been. And I promise you, clients are using the quality of those outbound communications to determine who they're even going to visit. By the time they schedule their in-store visits.
Yeah, and I've spoken to consumers also. So from the other side of the perspective, and it's that like if the consumer, they've done all their research online, 20 hours, some of them, right? They know exactly what kind of vehicle they want. They reach out to maybe 1, 2, 3 dealerships, but it's really the one who's going to respond to them promptly with a personalized message and actually provide them with new information as part of their conversation, because that means every time you bring in a new piece of information, the consumer is interacting, engaging with you more. They deeper in their sales funnel, less likely to go elsewhere or interact with somebody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. That quality of experience is critical, and it really does help improve our conversion here. More conversations, the more engagement, the higher conversion.
So with the consumer journey, there can be so many different options now, right? Like we mentioned, it's not linear. The customer can start online, finish off in the showroom, or start in the showroom, finish off online. They can reach out to us via phone. They might walk in without ever saying a word to us, or they might submit an e-lead. So there's so many different options. So in next session, we'll actually cover that follow-up strategy based on where the consumer is at in their journey and how they approached us or reached out to us as well. So if you can, please join us. We'll be back here at 12 o'clock next Wednesday with Matt and going really digging into the details of those specific follow-up strategies and approaches based on where the consumer is at in their journey.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.